Hello guys, welcome back to Bit Byte Kilobyte. This is chapter 3 and we'll be going through conditional statements in this chapter. So far whatever programs we have done, it was more sequential in nature where you had set of statements that we were executing one after the other. For the first time here, we will learn how do we do branching of statements, right? If you want to execute certain set of statements under certain condition, how you are going to do that. So for our example, what we are going to take is we will see how we can find out the maximum between three numbers. So we will capture three numbers into three variables, x, y, and z, and then we will find out which one of these is the maximum number. So what we are doing after that is we are setting this to a variable called max. After that, we are checking if y is greater than max, right? So max was set to x. Now it is actually checking if y is greater than x, right? Because max has the value of x. If true or yes, then we are setting max equal to y. That means at any point of time, max will have the maximum number. And if it is not true, if y is not equal to max, then between x and y, max already has the bigger number. So we don't do anything and come to our next branching. So in the next condition check, what we are doing is we are checking the last variable, which is z in this case, if it is greater than max. If it is greater than max, then amongst these three, z is the largest number. So we set z to max. And if it is not, then we don't do anything else and just print max. So this was the flowchart, and if you see from the program flow perspective, these are the two places where our code is actually branching, right? We are executing this piece of code if the condition is true, and the remaining piece of code if the condition is false. Same here. Now let's move to C# and see how we'll do this program. So in C#, conditional statements are implemented using if-else block. So what if takes is it takes an argument as a condition. If the condition is met, then it will execute the code which you have written under the braces here. If the condition is false, it will go to the else part. In else part, again, you can have one or many lines of code which it will execute if the condition is false. You can even have nested if-else blocks. So you can have a if statement inside else, or for that matter, you can have the same statement inside the true block of the parent if as well. Okay, so here what I'm checking is if this condition is false, that means I'm coming to else block, then I'm checking for another condition, condition 2, and doing something. Again, you may also have else here as well. So you can go any level of depth for nesting if else statements. So just to show you how this gets executed and what gets printed on the screen, I'm printing condition 1 is true if this condition is true, and in the else part I'm printing condition 1 is false. Okay, this should be condition 2. So here what I'm doing is, again, in the nested if, I'm checking if condition 2 is true. If it is true, I'm printing the same, and if it is false, I'm printing this to be false. Okay, now let's run this program and see the output. So here's the output. Based on what we have set here, we have set condition to be true. So it is coming into this piece of code, this block, and printing condition 1 is true. Let's change the input and see how it behaves. So what I did here now is I changed condition to false so that it comes to this block and execute the nested block here. Okay, so in the nested block, I have set condition 2 to false as well. So it will check for this condition and print this. So we should be seeing condition 1 is false and condition 2 is false here. Let's run the code. So here's our output. Condition 1 is false and condition 2 is also marked as false. Now that we know the basics of the conditional if-else block, let's move on to our program to find out the maximum between three numbers and see how it works out. So now let us start writing the code, which is equivalent to the flowchart which we just saw. I will use a function called find max. There's a function that we are defining. One cool feature of Visual Studio is you can tell Visual Studio to generate the method for you. So here it is. It's an empty method. We will put our code into this method now. So the first few lines of code would be taking the three numbers as input into variables x, y, and z. So this is how we achieve that. We print enter first number, get the number into x, and the same thing is repeated for y and z. And then we store max equal to x, which was the case in our PowerPoint as well. Now we'll move on to the branching instructions here using if-else block. we first write a if block where we are checking for if y is greater than max. Then we write, if that is the case, what do we do in the true part? We write max equal to y. And then if in the else block, we are checking if z is greater than max. If that is the case, then max equal to z. So I just wanted to point out here that if you have a else block where the only code inside it is a if block, you can write it in this format as well. It was the same what it does here. So moving ahead, once the checking of z is done, we go ahead and print the maximum number is max. Okay, so this is our program. So we are going to run this program from main and see how it behaves. So it's asking for the first number. I'll enter the first number as 12, second number as 5, and the third number as 67. So 67 is the maximum number. Okay, you can put breakpoints here and see how your code navigation actually works. Let us run it real quick. So it's asking for the first number, 10, minus 10, and 100. Okay, so our code comes here and then we move along. It's checking for the first condition, which is going to be false. So it goes to the else part. And the else part is checking if z is greater than max, which is the case because the value of z is 100. So this condition is becoming true. So it will get inside here and set max to z. And then we will print z on screen. So the number is 100. So that was simple if else block. Now, the next conditional statement in C# is switch case. So now suppose I'm trying to build a program where I'm taking two inputs from the user and I'm also taking input the operator that you want to apply on these two. It could be plus, minus, multiplication, or division, right? So this operator is basically one variable where you will enter multiple types of values, and depending on that value, I want to execute certain set of steps, right? In such kind of situation, you would prefer a switch case because otherwise you will have a lot of if-else statements against the same variable. So switch case is the ideal conditional statement that you should use when you have a particular variable and based on the value of that variable, you are doing multiple things, okay, where the driving factor is just that one variable. So in those situations, switch case is ideal. Let me show you how. So let us do the program now. What we'll do is we'll just input these three variables first. So this is how the program looks like. Very simple. We are just asking for the first number, reading it to x, asking for the second number, reading it to y, and then subsequently we are asking to enter an operator that you want to apply on between these two numbers, and we are storing it in a character OP. Here what I'm doing is I'm reading a key because that's the only thing which I need, one character, and then converting it to character. So the read key, like we covered in the previous chapter, gives a console key info object which has a property called character keychar, which returns the character that user has entered. So this completes our input part. Let's now move on to how we actually write a switch case statement here. You write switch and within braces you put the variable which you are writing the switch on. In our case, it is OP. Here, what you need to do is you need to define different cases, right? What happens when the value of OP is a certain value, okay? So case, if someone has entered plus, I will do something, right? So case plus, so if someone has entered plus, what are we going to do? I will declare a variable called result and I will set result equal to x plus y. Okay, because this is plus, I will do x plus y. Here, always remember that a case block needs to end with a break statement. This tells you that this is the end of this particular block or case. Break statement, what it does is it takes you outside the curly braces of the switch case. That means I don't want to check anything else. I know which condition was met and I've already done something that needs to be done. Similarly, I will write for the remaining operators. We added the lines for minus, division, and multiplication here and storing the result in result. There is one default case that you can also write. So what it does is if none of these matches, none of the cases matches with the value of OP, then it will execute the default case. This is particularly handy to identify that user has entered something that you cannot handle, which is not allowed. So what you can do in that case is print something on the screen that, hey, whatever you have entered is incorrect. So I write it as incorrect operator when none of these operators are met. Once this is done, what I will do is I will just display the result on screen. So I'll copy this and I will set result to 0. Okay, so this is where I'm actually printing or displaying the result. Now let me run this program and see what it does. So as expected, it's asking for the first number, which I will enter as 5, and asking for the second number, which I enter as 6. It's asking for an operator. I will enter the operator as plus. The moment we enter plus here, it gives the result as 5 plus 6, 11. I would like to give a line break here so that it's easy to read. So line breaks can be given by /n escape sequence. Okay, this means that you are trying to break the line here. Let's see how it goes now. So 5, 6, operator is plus. So now it is getting printed in a different line. What we can also do is try the default block here. 5, 6. Let me put and here. So it will give you the result as incorrect operator. So your default case gets executed in that case. So this is the second conditional statement in C#, which is called a switch case statement. So the next conditional statement is a ternary operator. By ternary, it means that it has 3 parts. I'll show how it works. So let's create a function called ternary. Check. I will tell Visual Studio to go ahead and create the method for me. So here's the method. What I will do here is I will just copy paste the code that I had written for finding the maximum of 3 numbers and see how we can use a ternary operator to actually get the result. So here, if you see, we have this whole piece of code, right, where we are checking x, y, max, etc., right? You can replace this whole piece of code with a ternary operator. So what ternary operator does is it checks for a condition within the 2 braces here. Okay, so our first condition in this case was if y is greater than max. So y is greater than max. You ask that condition using a question mark. Is y greater than max? If y is greater than max, what do you want to return, right, to the variable max? Because there's an assignment here, right? So this entire ternary operator actually returns something to max. So here I want to return the value of max to be y. The else part in a ternary operator is represented using colon. After colon, whatever you write becomes the else part. In else part, in our condition, we had to check if z is greater than max, right? So I will put another ternary operator here. Okay, so the ternary operator is if z is greater than max, question mark. If yes, then we were returning z as the value to be set to max. So I will return z in that case. Okay. Now there is an else part to this as well, which you need to enter. So if z is greater than max, we are returning z to be stored in max. And if that is not the case, then we don't have anything to do here, right? So this if doesn't have else block. So that means max stays to whatever max has the value, right? So we can return just max here. It's giving me an error. Okay, because max is not set to anything initially, right? So let me do this. I will set max to x like we were doing before, and then set max equal to. Now, as you can see, this all lines of code actually got replaced by this just one line of ternary operator. This is more of a shorthand to assign values of certain variables if that value is dependent on certain conditions. But my sincere recommendation is that other than doing very simple kind of assignments where you want to check a very simple condition, don't use ternary operators too much. Take a little bit of pain, but write it in if else block. This makes code much more easier to read. Maybe you have developed the code, but if someone new is trying to read this code, this is much easier to understand what is happening here than this statement, right? And if you make it even more complex with nested ternary operators within it, it becomes quite impossible to understand unless you actually go one by one. So my sincere recommendation is that stay away from this unless and until you are doing very simple operations like one level of ternary operators. Okay, so now let's run this program and see how it works. Okay, it's asking for the first number. I will enter minus 90. Then I will enter minus 30 and I will enter minus 80. So the maximum number here being on the negative scale is minus 19. So it was correctly able to find the number for us. Okay, so again, just a word of caution, use this sparingly. Don't use it all the time. It's not easy to read at all and not easy to debug as well. So before we wrap up, I just wanted to let you know, inside if you can also use conditional operators. So if is a conditional statement, and inside the braces of if you can use conditional operators as well. To give you an example, if we have two numbers like this, you can very well write a program like this, where inside if you are checking one condition and here is one condition. So to group conditions, to check more than one condition, what you can do is you can use conditional operators. There are multiple conditional operators in C#, like this is for checking logical AND operation. You have the pipe symbol, two pipe symbols to check logical OR operations. You have the exclamation sign to check the NOT condition. Okay, so these are the basic conditional operators that we have. You can use them here, like I've used for OR here, for AND here. So you can club multiple conditions. You can have n number of set of conditions here inside the if block. So that will also work. So at the end, what if expects is these should evaluate to a Boolean value, either true or false. So if it is true, then it will go here. If it is false, it will go to the else block. So that was all about conditional statements using C#. If else. So in the next lesson, we will cover loops. So by loops, we do iterations in C#. So stay tuned for that video. I will be releasing it very soon. And before we log off, one earnest request to you all. If you're liking these videos and if it is helpful to you, say thanks to me by subscribing to my channel, liking the video, and please share this with your friends so that my channel can grow and I can build more of such videos covering multiple areas of computer science. Thank you for today. See you in the next class. Bye-bye.